a lot of people also have been saying, when I get older, I'm just gonna hop on TRT. It just seems like there's like this like idea that TRT is essentially like it's kind of like the natty way. It's like not, they people
Mm,
don't kind of associate it with anabolics. They're just like, oh yeah, I'm getting older. I'm gonna hop on TRT. Why do you
yeah.
think people see it that way?
Um, yeah, it's tough because a lot of the literature that has come out is addressing true hypogonadism. So if somebody has, for example, primary hypogonadism is literally when your testes don't respond to the signaling hormones from your brain to the testes. So it's literally not responsive enough to make an adequate amount of testosterone to function properly. In that case, that guy needs TRT essentially because what else are you going to do? Those studies will get conflated often with, those outcomes were good equals I should be on TRT to optimize as well. But then the spectrum of risk, like I said, there's a reference range on blood tests that you'll see that goes from as low as 270 upwards of like 1200, depending on the lab. Some of it is more narrow, like in Canada, we have, I don't know, it's like 300 to 900 or something absurd. And then in the US, some places will go up to 1100. It kind of depends. But at the end of the day, there's obviously a difference between 350 and 1,000 in terms of how much androgens are floating around in your blood. So to say that I'm on TRT at 1,000 versus I'm on TRT at 600, it's like you're technically on replacement based on a therapeutic reference range at both of those amounts. But how much did you actually need to replace, the R in TRT? How much did you need to replace what you naturally produced? Typically, a lot of guys that are, not doing the actual clinical guided way of doing TRT, they are kind of picking what their replacement is, which is fine. You can do whatever you want. And that's not to say that's a bad thing. Again, it's just a spectrum of risk because, was you could also argue maybe the amount you produce naturally wasn't satisfactory to begin with. Maybe you'd be better off with a higher amount. So it's all dependent on where you land and then also what you actually need to fulfill functions in the body. So you'll often see 200 milligrams a week as a standard cookie cutter dose now, but that's, I would argue, in most cases, like mini baby cycle territory, essentially, perpetually.
Is the 200
And
milligram?
yeah, and this
Yeah.
is, again, some people actually need more than that to achieve therapeutic replacement or symptom relief, I should say more specifically. But that's few and far between. And just because one guy needs that, it doesn't mean you need it as well. So it's all like the dose is all individual dependent based on what you need. And like your original question was, people are thinking they need it or I should just be on it. Not always, it's not the case typically that people need that high of a dose. And oftentimes it is a little bit of a cop out for wanting to optimize to a like sports TRT level is what people often call it. But, and that's not to say that that's bad or good. You just need to be cognizant of the underlying risk under that because it is not the equivalent of a study using androgel that brings guys from hypogonadal to a 550 total. Like
Mhm.
you at 1200 on injectable testosterone and anthate every week is not the same as a hypogonadal guy going from 200 to 500 on androgel. Like conflating the two is not apples to apples. So as long as you're on top of your health metrics though, and you're highly educated about what you're doing at a real level, because a lot of guys are very, very disconnected with what they're actually doing. They think they're on TRT, but it's like you're on mini enhancement territory. Let's just level with what it actually is and just be aware of that. And that's fine. No one's going to judge you, hopefully, but you just need to like proactively take care of it accordingly through your screening and make sure
Yeah.
you're not putting yourself in unnecessary risk territory for that little elevation and enhancement.